What's going on, everyone? Today I want to talk about a key flaw in the Barbarian arsenal weapon system, as well as the weapon swapping aspect powers that are preventing the system from being able to be fully utilized to its maximum capability. We are going to be using the Walking Arsenal Keystone passive to help visually represent this today. Now, when you take this Keystone passive, you will get these three icons here on top of your XP bar, one for two-handed slashing, dual wield weapons, and your two-handed bludgeoning weapon. When you use an ability with one of these weapons, it'll actually fill up the icon with a gauge representing the duration left for the buff. This is going to help us show what weapon type was used based on the ability that is associated to it for the weapon. This is important because this whole issue stems from a large portion of our abilities either having a specific weapon type required for it, or not being able to assign a weapon to it at all. Now, some of these obviously are like Frenzy, which requires dual wield, or Hoda, which requires a two-handed bludgeoning. But this bigger problem is you have a bunch of abilities, Ground Stomp, Rallying Cry, Iron Skin, etc., that aren't able to have a weapon assigned to them. And so for all you triple shout users out there, there's not really a good opportunity for you to actually make use of the arsenal system because, you're running 3 shouts in Wrath of the Berserker. There's no opportunity for you to use 3 weapons. That being said, it makes sense that weapons are not affiliated to the shouts. Weapons don't do anything for the shouts. There's no damage scaling affiliated to them. So that's just the price you pay with running that setup. Iron Skin as well makes sense to not have a weapon assigned to it. However, it does say physical damage on it, so you could probably do something to make Iron Skin a little more appealing, giving it like maybe some Thorns effect, maybe, I don't know, because it is Iron Skin, and you can have it scale off of a weapon. Just an idea. But in general, the real issue comes from something like Ground Stomp, Kick, and Steel Grasp, which do have damage scaling components in them. However, they are not able to have a weapon assigned to them specifically. And as such, you might now be thinking, okay, well, yeah, they do have damage numbers affiliated to them, and there is a damage percentage there. What is it basing that off of? Is it just being based off of your strength? No, it's actually using whatever weapon type was last used for any attack. And so that can be good and bad. Primarily bad, though, because that isn't a weapon swap. And that doesn't count towards changing up what is used for the Walking Arsenal Keystone. So that's a bit of a problem, especially if you use Frenzy and then you try to use Kick. Kick is going to use your dual wield weapons instead of maybe your bigger, beefier two-handed weapon for its scaling. So to show you real quickly, we're going to open up with Leap, which is going to be using a two-handed bludgeoning weapon. Again, you will notice Kick and Steel Grasp do not actually have a damage weapon affiliated to them. But we're going to come over here. We're going to leap onto this mob. And you're going to see the bar fill up right here, the Walking Arsenal for two-handed bludgeoning. And now I'm going to use Kick. And there it goes. It fills it up with the two-handed bludgeoning. All right. Steel Grasp right there. Fills it up again. Now I'm going to use Frenzy, is the last attack I just used. But from Frenzy, we are actually going to go and now use Steel Grasp again as an opener, and you'll see that it's going to use the dual wield weapons. So we go there. It immediately used the dual wield weapons for the Walking Arsenal. Same thing when we just kicked. It filled it up for the Walking Arsenal. But you'll notice out of all these ability uses as well, there's only 2 weapon swaps that have occurred. We're also using currently the on our chest piece, after swapping weapons 6 times, we gain some Fortify. All right. This is important because this is a good way to generate Fortify, but there's also a bunch of other weapon swapping aspect powers, like for generating Berserking or giving us overpower guaranteed effects. And we're not getting any of those from this right now. We can use 3 abilities in a row, but we're only going to get 1 weapon swap out of it. So again, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to use Leap Slam. I'm going to use Steel Grasp. And I'm going to use Kick. We only went from 2 to 3. We used 3 different abilities, but we only got 1 weapon swap effect out of it. This is a big flaw with the Arsenal system, particularly for these abilities that are used that do not have a specific weapon being able to be designated to them, especially when clearly any weapon works for them, right? Because it's basing it off of whatever weapon was last used. However, all that does for us is extend the duration of one of the Arsenal passives based on what was used, as well as only give us the same weapon swap based on what was last used. So we're not actually able to get multiple weapon swaps out of this. But if any weapon is able to be used for these skills, or their scaling comes from any weapon, it's just based on what was used last, then there's no reason we shouldn't be able to assign a specific weapon to these abilities either. I'm hoping this is just an oversight and really wasn't just lazy development in order to cut corners and not have to, accommodate for every ability having a weapon associated to them. And they were just like, we can just make it automatically use whatever was used last. It's fine. I really hope that wasn't the case, because there's so much room for a lot of these abilities to be used, but a big flaw for the weapon arsenal system with all the weapon swapping is that it's not able to be fully utilized to its maximum potential, because we're not able to use all of our skills in order to make use of it. You have these 4 weapons at your disposal, and really people are just doing their core skill and their basic skill 2 weapon types, and they might even be pigeonholed into specific weapons as well for those abilities. And so it's just really unfortunate that some of these are just really not being able to get their maximum usage from them. Ground Stomp is a very common skill. It's in the same bucket. When you use whatever the last weapon was, it's going to use that. I'm even okay if these have specific weapons assigned to them. That way, they're just different weapons, though, and they're not all lumped together under whatever the last weapon was used. Ground Stomp is a very common skill. It would make sense for a 2-handed bludgeoning to be used for it. Steel Grasp would make sense for a slashing weapon to be used for it, particularly because Steel Grasp even has its own unique. It has a 2-handed axe unique. That's a 2-handed slashing weapon. But it could be using your dual wield weapons if that was the last thing that was used. And so I think this is just preventing the weapon swapping and the arsenal system from really being able to be utilized more effectively across builds, because we're not able to actually make use of the weapon swapping effects with a large portion of our skills. Fortunately, so long as you're swapping between 2 different weapons, all of the weapon swapping effects are still going to be able to be utilized. But having these abilities that are not able to have a weapon assigned to them limits your ability to utilize what can apply to weapon swapping and what can apply to the arsenal system. So I hope this is an oversight. I hope that they change this in the future and they let us assign abilities to things like Steel Grasp, Kick, Ground Stomp, etc., so that we are able to more fully utilize the arsenal system. And I think it will make it a lot more interesting for people's builds, and will make the weapon swapping aspect powers and class design elements much more valuable, instead of it, just being what it currently is with everybody running 3 shouts. But that's a different design flaw in and of itself, where shouts are just really freaking powerful. But that's all for now. I just wanted to talk about that because I do think the arsenal system is really cool and there is a lot of potential there for it. I just think it just needs a little bit of adjustment. But if you guys enjoy the video, be sure to drop a like. And if you want to catch us live, you can find us on Twitch at twitch.tv/Zav. We're always open to talking about anything about the game and the Barbarian class, as well as answering any questions you may have. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and have a good one.